referrals today, and I really appreciate Insured Solutions setting this up and giving me the opportunity to talk with you all. So thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time. My name is Vince Esposito. I'm the CEO of Esposito Vantage Group, an authorized Sandler trainer located in Louisville, Kentucky. And it is Louisville for those of you outside of Kentucky. But I work with companies to help their sales force get. It's not that they don't have a good team in place, but we work to help them get better, or if they might want to look at other ways to increase their closing, or the margins are shrinking a little bit. And I've been in sales about 30 years. I've worked with a lot of different organizations, and in fact, a lot of my background for several years, I was in a commercial insurance industry here in Kentucky. So not that I know exactly what you all are dealing with, but I've been in your shoes selling workers' comp, general liability to large industrial and commercial entities in Kentucky and southern Indiana. But what I'd like to do today is to really make this as productive for you as I can, and hopefully walk away with some action items to really increase your sales and your business development efforts. So as I said, I'm a Sandler trainer, and I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Sandler, so I'm not going to go into a long dissertation about that, but I did want to let you know there's about 250 of my colleagues around the globe, and Sandler is in, I think it's now about 17, 18 different languages that the material is subscribed in, so people in different languages can hear the same type of information. And what we do, really, just to give you a quick summary, is we work with people to help them get a more honest and straightforward conversation to cut through that buyer-seller dance that's out there with buyers who aren't as trusting as we'd like them to be. We also work with companies, help them with their prospecting, and I see referrals as a key part of that piece. So as we go through this, and I may use some terms that are just pertinent to Sandler, and if I do, I'm going to try and tell you about that as I say them so you understand where I'm coming from. Keep in mind that as we go through this, that if you have any questions, there's going to be two ways. You can either send them in through the webinar, and we'll try and get to those at the end, or I'm going to have my email at the very last slide for questions, and you'll be able to email me with any additional questions or something that I just didn't hit well enough for you. So with that, I'd like to get started and talk about referrals. So when we go through this today at Sandler, we have a model called the Success Triangle, and we see attitude, behavior, and technique as the key points on that triangle. That's what adds up to success. Now, obviously, today I'm not going to be able to spend a lot of time on attitude. I will talk about behavior, but we're not going to have any follow-up to see if you're following through on some of these behaviors. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is technique and concepts today. But I would urge you, as you go through this, to think about the behaviors that you could put in place to try some of these referral methods to expand your reach and your business. So let's talk a second about the power referrals. I mean, I know, I believe that everybody understands that referrals are a great way to get new business opportunities, and there's different levels of referrals or types, and we'll go into that in a minute. But what is the, what's the why behind it, the power of referrals? And here's some statistics that I found that I'd like to get out that we can look at just to keep that in mind as we're talking. 65% of new business comes from referrals. That's the New York Times did a survey on that. So that's a big chunk of business that comes from referrals across the country. 92% of the respondents trusted referrals from people they know. And I think, if you think about your personal life, and with me, if, I have a situation, which in fact I just did last week, where I needed a mechanic. I Googled some people, but I went to some friends first and said, who do you use, who's done a good job and been honest with you? And that's where I started and went there. So that's kind of the powerful reach that a referral can have. And people are 4 times more likely to buy when referred. So obviously, we're in the sales business, all of us, and we want to increase our opportunities and our success rate. Referrals do that exponentially. And the lifetime value of a new referral customer is 16% greater, according to the Wharton School of Business. Now, honestly, I don't know all the metrics that they looked at there, but I think it stems from the fact that as you're working with people that are referred, there's a better bond usually. Not all the time, depending on how you work it, and we're going to talk through some of that, but I think starting off, you come in with a little more credibility. And finally, Texas Tech did this survey. 83% of consumers are willing to refer after a positive experience. That's 83%. Yet only 29% actually do. And obviously that's a pretty big gap, and I think a lot of that falls on us as salespeople, because we're just not prepared to ask, or we don't incorporate it into a prospecting process that we make it a part of our everyday makeup as we're out there trying to conduct business. And I really think we're missing an opportunity there to help ourselves with getting our reach out through other people who are basically advocates for us and doing commercials for us. So keep this in mind as we go through this. And once again, I'm going to have my email at the end. If you missed anything here, you have some questions, you can email me and I can get that information to you. So what's the top 5 reasons why we don't get enough referrals? I think from my experience and some of the training I've done, as well as clients I've worked with, we've found out that we're just not specific enough in what we ask for referrals. So as we go through this, I'm going to have some more information here, and I'm going to ask you to think about really what is your sweet spot, where you really do well, what separates you from your competition to really satisfy a customer. And let's focus our referrals around that, because let's face it, we don't want to get one that's a reach and we may not do well with, because that could end up being a black eye with a current client. And that's always a fear. So I think the way we kind of move past that is get very specific. And as an example, in the insurance world, which some of you know, are dealing with right now, I worked for Liberty Mutual, their direct sales force, and then when they sold that, I went to work for Wells Fargo, a big insurance broker. And at Wells Fargo, they had a policy that if it didn't generate $50,000 in premium, we weren't going to be able to work on it. And so I really had to be specific when I asked people for referrals that the business was big enough to generate that type of premium. Otherwise, I was going to put them in a bad situation, and me as well. So I think we have to be specific. We don't incorporate them in upfront agreements. And upfront agreements, that is a Sandler term that we use in any type of meeting or interaction to set the stage for the meeting. And if any of you are baseball fans, before every game, the umpires and the managers get together and they talk about the differences at that specific field. So like up in Wrigley Field in Chicago, where there's ivy on the fence, they talk about if the ball goes under, the outfielder puts his hands up, it's a ground rule double. That's what we try to teach our sales professionals to do, not only in the sales function, But if you're going to ask for referrals, let's incorporate that in the upfront agreements. If you're happy with the service, I would ask that you think about people that might be a good fit for me. And here's another big one. We don't give, therefore we don't receive. And so I would also ask you to be conscious about the people that you're working with and good clients for them. Because obviously, if you give a referral, you're much more likely to get one in return. I mean, that's human nature, that if you know, someone does something for you, you're going to try and help them out over just anybody else that you come in contact with. So keep that in mind. I'm sure a lot of you are doing that now and have referred a lot of business to your clients. And I got to say this: don't do it on the fact that, you know, you're keeping score. Well, I gave you 3 referrals, I haven't gotten any from you. You know, if you find out that it's not a two-way street, then move on to someone else that will refer to you. But you don't want to make it a contentious situation. That's not going to help. And too many times we make it about us. We're worried about the referrals that we need to get as opposed to how we can help others. And I understand, you know, the whole premise of this is to help our business development efforts, but it's that mentality that the more you give, the more you're going to get. And if you focus on them and what they're doing, you're going to have people, you're going to build a base of adoring fans that are going to want to see you succeed. Okay? And then the last thing is, I don't think, we just don't ask. And a lot of that comes to do with what I call head trash. You're going to see on some other slides that I also refer to it as comfort zone, where we get comfortable. And I think that is a big mistake by salespeople in general, sales professionals, that, you know, if you're in sales, you should always be prospecting, and referrals are a way to help other people prospect for you to expand your reach once again. All right, so here, as I said earlier, I was going to talk about 4 types of referrals. This is how I categorize referrals, okay? You don't have to do it this way. You can use this as an example and put your own spin on it. But cold would be name and phone number only. It's someone you should call, but you don't really have a lot of information on them. Cool would be a COI, and you're going to see that those initials as we go through this presentation today, but it stands for Center of Influence. So that can be someone that is a client already, or an actual center of influence if you belong to a chamber or associations that help. And they may call and give some information about you. So that makes it a cool referral. Personal introduction on your behalf, where someone actually will make an introduction for you, not with you in the room, but say either an email or some type of introduction, or calls and says, hey, I was talking with Vince, I think you two should talk, he's probably going to give you a call. And that helps make it a little bit warmer where they should be expecting that. And then the ultimate is a face-to-face introduction. If you can get the center of influence, if they'll go with you, excuse me, and actually sit down with that face-to-face. And obviously that's the best, right? But I understand the business storm out there, not everybody has time, but the clients that you're closer with, you're going to do more of this, and you know, this is where you'll really see success, because once again, you're going to have a third-party person there that can tell your story, and that's a powerful, powerful arrow in your quiver to use to help expand that reach. All right, so here's some guidelines for referrals, and I want you to keep this in mind as we go forward here. Manage what you can control, and this isn't just referrals. We use this with sales too. You can't manage how many referrals you get, but you can manage how many you ask for. And you know, if you're thinking, well, you know, I'm only getting 3 or 4, then you got to work backwards and say, maybe I'm not asking for enough of them. And it takes time. That's the other thing that, when I talked about that head trash, is that I think people think it should happen automatically. You've done a good job, you should get 3, 4 referrals. Well, people are busy and they have lives outside of business, so you can't let that affect you personally. You got to move past that and just try to up the amount of asks that you do. And then I would ask you all to think, and obviously you can't spout it out here on the conference, but think about how many referrals you've asked for lately. And then furthermore, is it a routine or a process that you do on a regular basis? Don't get frustrated. Like I just said a minute ago, not everyone gives referrals. Some of your clients and some of your best clients just may not be comfortable with that. And that can stem from some issues or concepts or things that they have in their mind where they made a referral and it didn't go well, or that type of situation. Don't put pressure on them or yourself. That's okay. They may still introduce you to another center of influence that then you can talk about referrals. And don't ask your referrers to sell for you. That is another big mistake or challenge that I see a lot of salespeople that we talk about and we do debriefs afterwards. And they thought that the referrer was going to sell it for them. You just want to get the conversation, and no one knows your business like you. And you don't want them, even though you're working with them in insurance or whatever it might be, you don't want them telling your story. You want the opportunity to tell your story. Okay, and that's how you'll make the most out of the referrals. All right, so let's keep those guidelines in mind as we continue on. All right, so as I said, I think a key is give referrals to get referrals. And I know a lot of you are involved in different networking events. And they can range from, like I said, chamber meetings to associations to just network gatherings. And, what I will tell you is that I've seen more success with people that are out working in those networking situations to find out what others do and what's a good referral for them. And then you'll start getting multiple back, and ask them, how'd you like me to introduce you? What is your referral strategy? Talk about that. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, give and it shall be given you. And I really believe that the more that you give, the more you're going to get. And you can't use these opportunities to just think, I have to walk away with a sale from this. You should make a goal that you want to talk to X amount of people or make X amount of asks. And that will depend on each one of you and your cookbook, which we'll talk about later, and what works for you as far as the opportunities you need to be successful or to raise your success. All right. So also in those situations, you have to be prepared to get a referral. And I talked about it earlier that we aren't always specific enough on what we're looking for. So describe your ideal client. And as I said, start with that. And if you think that's limiting you, I would beg to differ, because that's where you're going to have your biggest bang for buck, is on the people that you really can help. And that's where, if you're having people refer, they focus their time, that's going to help you not only have a better opportunity, will build more credibility with the person who referred you. So really focus on your ideal client. Really understand the pain you relieve or the pleasure that your clients receive. And this is another kind of Sandler thing, is we're not big on just talking about features and benefits. Now, I gave you a little features and benefits about Sandler earlier, just to give you some perspective on the size of the organization. But when I talk with people, and I'm going to talk about a 30-second commercial later, I tell them about the pains we help solve for people. We help people get more efficient at sales. We help them come up with a process so they can have a whole team talking the same language and everybody understands where they're at any time in the spectrum. And we help them through reinforcement to really, really change behavior. And that's the only way you're going to change behavior, is by reinforcement. That's the type of stuff that sets us apart from other training organizations. You have to decide for you what sets you apart in your market from your competition. Because the features and benefits, that all kind of molds together and just sounds the same. Who you are, you know, how long you've been doing it, what makes you tick, what do you do, and this is more along the line with the pain, but you know, specifically what you do at the company. Why should they do business with you? That differentiator, not the features and benefits, really what sets you apart. So that would be how different you are. You have to be prepared when you get that opportunity to get or ask for a referral, that you know what you're asking for. And then also what I've found over the years is that will make the ask that much easier, as opposed to thinking, well, I can ask them for anything, and then your mind goes blank, or you start dreading it. So the more you're prepared, obviously, the easier it comes. So all right, let's talk about head trash and comfort zone. And this, you know, this part right here, even though I had it listed last on that screen of the issues, I think this is as big a reason why we don't get referrals and or sales is head trash and comfort zone that we get into. You know, do you seek out evidence that confirms your core assumptions? You know, I don't want to make my clients feel awkward. That might be, you know, a gut feeling or a feeling you have, but that's a self-limiting belief. Why are you putting that on your client or someone you've done a good job for? And it's because, you know, we feel it's going to be a little awkward. And I just said a minute ago that the more you get prepared, the less awkward that becomes. And the more you practice it, the less awkward that becomes. So that's why you really have to push through to get out of that comfort zone. But as humans, we want to, you know, fall into comfort zones, but no one's ever grown in a comfort zone. And no one will ever achieve the most or the most that they can in a comfort zone. I can guarantee you that. Mark Twain said, it's not what we don't know that hurts us, it's what we know for sure that just ain't so. So we build up in our head this conception that, you know, we can't ask for referrals because if it goes wrong, we're going to jeopardize our client relationship. Well, I'm saying that's another self-limiting belief, and we need to move past that to really reach our full potential. And, you know, the first slide, or second slide, I guess, where I showed those statistics, 65% of new business comes from referrals, and 83% of people would like to give a referral after a good experience. That's what the stats tell us. The other stuff is our head trash and our lack of being in a comfort or getting out of a comfort zone to move that. Now, this is the great one too that's kind of been ingrained with us, never talk to strangers, and that's everyone's mom told you that, right? You know, we have to move past that, and in sales, you have to be comfortable with going out and meet new people. Same thing with the referral piece. I would even tell you in a sales situation that there should be 4 outcomes. One would be you get a yes, you get a sale. 2 would be no. 3 would be a clear future that maybe the timing isn't right now, but here's where we're going to go. And then the other one would be to get a referral. Because if it's not a good fit for you, doesn't mean that they don't know someone that might be a good fit. And I think that's another comfort zone thing. I had a training session last week where we were talking about this very thing, and we had talked about it a few months ago, and one of my clients stood up in the room from 15 people and said, you know, I finally got comfortable to try to ask somebody that, you know, he has a remodeling business and he's very strict on what's a good fit and what isn't. And when he said that and it wasn't a good fit, he said, you know, let me take a second and see if we might talk about someone you might refer me to. And he got referred to a brother or a brother-in-law and ended up getting a piece of business out of that, just because he was willing to ask to someone that wasn't going to do business with him. So my point there is, let's not limit ourselves. These things can be real and there's that are imagined, and I see it as a two-pronged. There's the conceptual part of the head trash and comfort zone, which is how we were scripted as kids. Like in my house, you know, strict Italian upbringing, old school kind of dad. If I was asking a neighbor, hey, could you refer something, you know, he was going to hit me in the back of the head and say, don't ask. And I had to get past that. There's societal norms, the company view. Some companies don't like to do that, or the industry view. Then the other part of the reason why we don't ask with head trash is the technical. We're not sure what questions do I ask and when do I ask them. And we're going to talk through some of that, but that's where that practice and that comfort, or getting out of that comfort zone, comes from, is pushing yourself to do it. It's not going to be smooth every time. Heck, I've been doing this for, like I said, sales for 30 years. It's not smooth every time. But the willingness to keep doing it is what keeps me moving forward. All right, so let's talk a little bit about an effective referral process so you can have something that, and when you get off this call, you can, or this webinar, you can point to say, all right, let me try and implement some of these, and I'm going to ask you at the end to put an action plan in place. But here's the 6 steps that I see. There's a value discussion, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about each one of these. Get permission to brainstorm. Rehearse it. Make the call, kind of the Nike, just do it. And then celebrate the opportunities. Keep your referrer informed. And then this is another big Vince thing through Sandler, is accountability. And I don't mean accountability in traditional, you know, what have you done today? Let's have accountability. Let's set up a process and a plan, and let's have those key performance indicators, and let's work on hitting those. And whether you have to work with someone internally at your office to try and help you stay accountable, besides a boss, because that sometimes can get a little dicey, or a good friend that's just an accountability partner. This is what I want to accomplish. Help me stay on task. I really would recommend that you look to do that, because accountability is not a 4-letter word in sales. It will make us all money and will help us push through those comfort zones we talked about. All right, so let me dive a little bit deeper in each one of these. So value discussion. One of 2 scenarios must occur before you ask. So this gets in a little bit too when you ask for the referral. Unsolicited, the client shares something that you did for them, or, you know, help them. Man, that's a great time. Hey, you know, I'm glad, you know, you would say that. You know, who do you think could benefit? Who else could benefit from this? These are the type of companies I work with. Do you know anybody that looks like that? And if they don't give you that information unsolicited, then you ask, what would you say is the single most important thing I've done with you? And, you know, people are not getting this kind of interaction. It just isn't happening on a regular basis. And if they were referred to you, then say, in fact, if it weren't for the person who referred me to you, you know, I wouldn't have met you either, and we wouldn't be doing business together. I mean, obviously, if they've referred you, they understand the importance. I mean, if you've been referred, they understand the importance of that referral and how well it worked. So I think that's a big thing, and these value discussions can help set the stage. Okay? Get permission to brainstorm. You know, it goes back to that one phrase I used up front, contractor setting the stage. Set the stage to get permission. Would you mind taking a few minutes to brainstorm with me about who you know that might need help or similar services? Who do you know that would appreciate a call from me? Who do you care about that would want to talk with me? Who do you know who would meet with me solely on your recommendation? And as we brainstorm, please keep in mind that we're not right for everyone. So let me just take a minute to explain that to you. So I want you to make people comfortable that they don't have to refer, but if they've had a good experience, I think you're going to see a lot of them are going to go out of their way to refer you. And once again, I would ask you to think about yourself personally, and if you've been helped, you're more likely to try to help that person. And that's what we're talking about here. So, but get permission to brainstorm. Rehearse it with them. Help them match people they know to you. What can you tell me about them? Get some information. This is what takes it away from being just a introduction to a real referral and away from that cold to make it warmer. Tell me something that you like or, admire about the person you're referred. Do you see them on a regular basis? Would you be comfortable telling them, what I've done for you? What would you feel comfortable saying? Understand that and have that discussion, because then you'll know that this could be a pretty good referral source, or you know what, there's some misconception. It could also help you with customer retention to see if there's something there you weren't aware of that can help you nip that in the bud before it lingered on and became a big issue. All right, so, and what can you share about our work that would be important to them? We're big on practice and practice and practice to get better at whatever it is you're trying to work on. Most of you, are in the insurance world, and I know you have continuing education classes that you're taking there, and you spend a lot of time understanding policies and the changes and the amendments that come out in the different policies so you can be an expert. It's no different in the sales side. It's not that sales is rocket science, but it does take discipline and it takes courage to do those things. So if you get the opportunity, the voice to voice, and when I give you some of the information, it's my words, how I use it. You don't have to use it just like that. It's more about the guideline to do it as opposed to saying exactly the same words. And in fact, I think you may know this, but I'll just give you the quick reminder on communication. If you look at a communication wheel or a wheel and break it up into percentages, and you look at words, tonality, and body language, research has shown us that people only remember 7% of what we say, the words we say, but they remember 55% of our body language and how emphatic we are, and 38% of the tonality that we use. So that's more important than actually what you're saying. My point here is just to get you to have some type of pattern or guideline to use. Mine would be, hey, this is Vince Esposito. Is my name familiar to you? No, I was hoping it would be. And blank, whoever John referred me to you for some reason. He thought it'd be a good opportunity if we would talk. And then just ask him to spend some time together. And that's where we believe that it's really good to have a 30-second commercial that you're very comfortable with in your back pocket when you get to this situation, and or just with new possible prospects themselves. So let me take a second and talk about a 30-second commercial. Some of you may have heard it referred to as elevator speech. And I know a lot of you have been in the business a while, so I'm not going to go into great detail. And as I said, if there is extra information, please email me and I can get it to you. But we are more focused about what your company does than we've been in business for 80 years. Well, I know that sounds like credibility, but the person you're talking to, it really usually doesn't matter too much to them. And focus on the things you do to help your clients, because if they don't have that need, they're not a real good prospect. Right? I mean, I'm not saying that, you don't want to keep in touch with them. Obviously, that things may change down the road. But you only have so many hours in a day. That's one guarantee, that you're going to get 24 hours. And out of the 24 hours, you're going to only have X amount of hours to work on prospects. So wouldn't you want to prospect the ones that really have a pain or are looking for a gain that you're really good at providing, as opposed to trying to make round pegs fit in square holes? Let's focus with them first, and then we can move on to the others. So when you come up with your 30-second commercial, it should be more about what you do to help people. And I would even ask you to do this exercise on your own, at some time when you have a moment. Visualize it. And just bear with me here. For some reason, you wake up and there's 100 people outside your door that want to buy from you. all right? And if that's the case, you can only handle 3 of them. So what are the things that you want to triage to know that you're going to be most successful for or with? So if you could do that and then use those things as your pain indicators for your 30-second commercial, you're going to do yourself a big favor by focusing on people that you really can work with, and stay away from, we're the largest insurer of this. I know that's good, but that's really not why people are going to act. They kind of expect you to have that credibility when you're sitting in front of them. So you want to focus on really the things you do well. All right. This is another thing from working with salespeople over the years that I've seen that has been overlooked. Celebrate. Keep the refer informed of the progress and results. Send them personal thanks. And once again, I understand we're busy, but have a stack of thank you cards, and you get a referral that turns into business. Send a quick thank you. How many other folks are doing that out there? I'm telling you, it's not that much. Then obviously get that person referred. And the more that you do, right, they're going to feel more comfortable in referring you. And you want to make it a real psychological baton of power to get them vested in your success. If you don't tell them about what's happened, it's hard for them to have any kind of skin in the game with you, and you want them vested to help you to keep that kind of pump primed and keep moving forward. Very important to celebrate. All right, so consequence and accountability. There's a couple ways to look at this, and once again, I'm not old school. We're just going to beat on people for not having results. I think that is the wrong way to look at the situation. All right, you have to look at the behaviors needed and focus on those and hold yourself accountable to those behaviors. Here's another way to do it. Calculate what you're leaving on the table by just doing simple math. As an example, I'll ask 10 times. If I get 5 referrals and 2 turn in, 2 possible and 1 client at $10,000, this is what I'm leaving on the table if I don't ask for referral, $1,000 per ask. If you can monetize it, that can help reinforce the behavior. To say, look, if I do this on a regular basis, I'm going to get business, and it's going to turn in these type of dollars for me. And you need to have that awareness to understand where you're at with your cost of sale and your average sale, what that means to you, and then do the math on it. All right, so I mentioned cookbook, and we look at the cookbook at Sandler as your recipe for success. And everything we're talking about referral is great, but if you don't implement it and you don't put it into practice, then you've wasted some time today on the phone. So, how many clients did you meet with in a given month? How many referrals did you ask for out of that? And I don't know your book of business, and I don't know your prospecting world, but you do, and you should be thinking about it as to how many people am I meeting on with a regular basis, and how many people am I asking for referrals? And then how many did you get? What percent of times you asked did you get a referral? And some of that will help you kind of refine how you ask for it. And I gave you some pointers there to, if someone gives you an unsolicited compliment, that's a great time to ask. Or you've just singled out something that you've done for somebody that was a real win for them. There's another good time. We're also going to talk a minute, too, about setting expectations with new customers. To set that right up front will help you down the road be able to go back and have that discussion. So how do you practice? And the cookbook should be your kind of, this is the plan I'm going to follow. And it may have, we're talking about referrals, but there's other forms of prospecting, cold calls, mailings, networking, all different types of things. But you should have a cookbook that has time allocated to do these things. instead of just thinking it's going to happen. And then it gives you the opportunity to change something if it's not working. You can look back and tweak if things aren't working. Okay, so here's some activities. Research, checking to see who your clients are. And I believe you guys had done, some of you may have been on it, may not have, but have done some social media look. And obviously LinkedIn is a big professional network out there. So all your clients you should be connected with on LinkedIn. You might want to set some time aside to look at some of those clients to see who they're connected to. And I would think that most of you know that you can do a search on your clients' connections, and you can put in like CEO or CFO or risk manager, those types of names, and see who they know with those titles. And then set up a meeting. And I would also, if you set up that meeting, we'll talk, tell your client to do the same thing with you. And you want to try and give them referrals. So it's a give and take type of meeting. You're going to have much more success at getting those meetings to really have those discussions on referrals. Calling your centers of influence is to set meetings to ask for referrals. And once again, depending on your market, when I was in the insurance world here, I had a couple of accounting firms that I worked with that, they were focused on the customer's financial side, but that, tied in very well with the insurance. And we worked back and forth where I would introduce clients to them, they would introduce clients to me. And it was a nice give and take relationship. And have you set that in your cookbook to call those centers of influences and have that discussion? Meeting with ones you don't know, trying to identify some people that maybe you've heard that have a good reputation and have done a good job, well, reaching out to them to set a time to talk. Meeting with that you've already agreed to do business with, calling people that haven't been referred, meeting with people that have been referred, which we'll say are suspects, and meeting with suspects that are looking deeper, and that would be a prospect, someone that you've had at least some type of qualifying discussion with, meaningful discussion with. Not that, we're ready to do a proposal, but you've at least had some qualification discussion. So build a referral tree, diagram your referral tree, know where they come from, and do more of that. I don't care if you use a CRM system or an old Excel spreadsheet, but you have to have somewhere to track this so you can gauge its effectiveness. And if it doesn't work out, then you either have to tweak some of your approach or you have to try and do more of it. And that's for you to decide looking at your book of business and your marketing world, or I'm sorry, your world, to see what has worked, what hasn't, and then track it. And no different with referrals. Build that tree. Understand how you've gotten business. This can only help you focus your time. And once again, as I said earlier, time is limited, so we want to be as efficient with it as we can. And that's really at the heart of it. What a referral will do is get you past some of the normal buyer-seller dance and not trusting each other, because you have someone who's built your credibility. All right, so here's some tips, and I think we've got a few more minutes before the webinars to conclude. So, and I want to say some time for some questions here. Ask for referrals. Just do it, even though doing so lies outside of your comfort zone. That's how you'll get better. The more you do it, the more comfortable. Then we'll work on the next thing after that. But let's work on getting outside of the comfort zone. Understand your target market. That's a key for referrals, to make sure that you're really focusing on the people you can help. Create a target list. Once you've defined that target, then create a target list. And that's where LinkedIn or the internet can come and help, to try and do some research to see who you know or who you work with that might be connected. On LinkedIn, there's a ton of information on company pages. So you could go to one of your clients' pages and look and see who is on LinkedIn, who they know, and it might start filling in some of the void of where the relationships are and give you some ideas. And you may find out, I would guess that you'll find out in your market that you have connections, second or third connections through LinkedIn to some of these folks. Teach your contacts how to give you a prospect, what you're looking for. Take the next step and ask for a personal introduction. We talked about it earlier. I think the number is something like your chances increase 50% by winning business if you have a personal introduction, as opposed to, hey, call Jim over at ABC Company. I think he'd be a good prospect for you. Follow up with your referral source. Once again, celebrate, keep them informed so they understand they're part of your team and you're invested in them and they're invested in you. Track the strategic partnerships and referrals. Do not pressure someone who's not comfortable giving referrals. I'd like to tell you there's magic dust you can sprinkle on them to get past that, but you're not going to do any favors to you or them if you're trying to push people that aren't comfortable giving referrals. You got to move on to the next ones. All right, so reverse the pattern. How long have you worked together? I appreciate your loyalty. Because of my own hang-ups, I've been reluctant to put you in an uncomfortable position. One of my personal goals this year, try and get them vested in working for you. In order to do this, I'll need to ask for introductions so I can spend less time looking elsewhere. And, stroke them. I'm looking for more clients like you, someone who's engaged, and if I ask for your introduction, will that make you uncomfortable to help them get comfortable because you see them as a valuable asset? All right. So real quick here, I know we're coming to the end. New clients, set the expectation right up front at the close that in the future you'd like to have this discussion on referrals, but you have to make it a two-way street where you're going to look to give them referrals as well and make it a business or a networking family. I mean, obviously, the more people you can have working for you is going to help you be more successful. There's just no way around that. I look forward to exceeding your expectation. People like you not getting with and found would consider it a personal favor if you would introduce me. I will do the same for you. And that you have to make that clear. It's a two-way street. You can't escape practice. Practice is a key, and good practice, right? I don't know if any of you have read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And obviously I'm not going to go into the whole book, but the key takeaway is that people that have been really successful, they found that they've put 10,000 hours of practice into that subject to really be good at it. And he named people like Bill Gates, the Beatles, some really successful people to do it. So it works, and you have to practice with your folks to really get it right. How do you prepare them? Really focus on that, and we've talked about some things that you can teach them as well. Start with happy clients. That's the low-hanging fruit, people that are really happy with what you've done for them. Don't quit. Don't give up. Keep working on the referrals. I've seen it expand businesses exponentially. In fact, some of my clients, that's primarily how they generate business now is through referrals. And really work with them on how they'd like to be introduced as well. Help them help you, who they know. I don't know if you know the term warboard, but get a whiteboard up there and try and be strategic. Where am I trying to go? Who am I trying to get in? Who are people that might know some of them? And then once again, that's where the internet and LinkedIn can help. And you're creating a culture of cooperation. And you have to be willing to give as much as you get. Okay, I guess I have 2 questions from Stephen Kent. Let's see if I can see those questions. I don't see them on the screen here. As I said here at the end, and I think it's one more slide, I'm going to give you my email address. Maybe Stephen Kent, you can email me directly with those questions and I can get back to you. Here's some Sandler rules, and the first one is not just a Sandler rule. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. But here's some other Sandler rules to live by. Money does grow on trees, referral trees, if you work it and you get outside your comfort zone and ask. You don't have to like prospecting, you just have to do it. And every unsuccessful prospecting call leads to compound interest. I mean, that's a fact that if you make 100 calls, you're going to get X amount of hits. So every one that you get a no on, you're that much closer to getting a hit. Same thing with referrals. You can't fail at prospecting unless you fail to prospect. And referrals are a big piece of that to help make it a warmer introduction and a warmer opportunity. So there's some questions here. Let me see if I can look here on this. Debbie at Insure Solutions, let's see. So Steve asked, I find it tough to ask for a referral if my client feels that the referral, I can't read the rest of it, might be a competitor. Is there a soft way to do this? That's a great question, Steve. I like to take it back to the fact that, look, we're in a tough business, and I know there's a lot of competitors out there, but isn't it better if we build a more educated, better competitor base even, that we have people on the same page? I would definitely talk with them, and if that's an issue for them or they've expressed that, bring it out. And if they're really steadfast that they don't want you dealing with competitors, then you're going to have to make a business decision and probably not get a referral from them. You may have to try a different avenue to get in there. I hope that helped. Here's what I want you to think about too. What action steps in the next 30, 60, 90 days are you going to take to implement this referral discussion? So how many referrals are you going to try to get in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And I'm not saying to make it unattainable, but give it some thought and then put that plan in place. And what steps are you going to take? What behaviors are you going to take? Are you going to go to some more networking events? Are you going to set up meetings with your existing clients? That would be the first place to start. Where are you going to get these referrals from? And then track it and really push yourself to follow through on those behaviors. And I apologize for the technical difficulties that I'm not seeing the questions here. So once again, I would ask you to email me directly or call me, and that's my phone number, my office phone number, 502-454-5454. So with that, I'd like to really thank you for your time. I think we had scheduled about an hour, but as I said, I'm not really getting a question. So please feel free to email me, and I'll answer the questions as quick as I can. And if not, later today, then tomorrow I'll get back with you. Or as I said, pick up the phone and call me. Really appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. I wish you all great selling, and would like you to make it a great day.